Yo, what's good? Easy Breezy Eeb here, and welcome to my Eazy Eeb Ranks episode for His Dark Materials Season 2. Now I want to start by saying these rankings are just for fun, like they're really all interchangeable except for maybe my top 1 or top 2. But it just gives me an excuse to sort of go through every episode, maybe not in chronological order, but in order of what happens the most. And yeah, if you've seen my previous 2 ranking videos, then yeah, it's going to be similar to that. And if you haven't, go ahead and check them out if you've seen The Mandalorian Season 2 or if you've seen Dash and Lily. But yeah, so here we go. Let's just get right to it. Also, as many of you may know, I have done reaction videos to every single episode of His Dark Materials Season 2. So if you haven't checked those out yet, go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and look through my videos, subscribe, or if I remember, I'll put the links down below as well. So there are 7 episodes to this season, and we're gonna be starting from least favorite to favorite or best. So of these 7 episodes, my number 7 episode is episode 3, Theft. I'm not exactly sure why I put this below in my rankings, but I did. I think it's just because not too many things happen. But to be honest, actually one of my favorite scenes of this season did happen in this episode, which is the scene with Marisa and Lee. Lee had been captured by the Magisterium, and Marisa finds out that Lee is there, and she goes to kind of talk to him to ask. She's still trying to figure out where Lyra is at this point, and she talks to Lee, and they have this conversation about their past. And it seems like they have very similar pasts. Marisa comes from a troubled childhood, particularly with their parents, and same with Lee as well. And they kind of have a conversation about how this has made them who they are today, and how this has made them the tough people that they are. They bond in a way on this point, and they also bond with their love for Lyra. Lee says, and he reiterates this throughout the season, that he loves Lyra like a daughter. He will do anything. He will gladly give his life to protect Lyra. And spoiler alert, obviously, he does eventually give his life to make sure Lyra is safe from the Magisterium. Because of this, Marisa sees Lee, who genuinely loves Lyra, as an asset to her, because her number 1 priority is to keep Lyra safe and not in the hands of the Magisterium, or even in someone dangerous like Boreal's hands. I'm not sure if she knows he has her at this point, I don't think so, but he makes a deal with him that she will let him go as long as he promises that if he finds Lyra first, to keep her safe. And the other thing that kind of happens in this episode is Boreal, pretending to be Charles, gives Lyra a ride away from Lyra's pursuer, which is really his own dude. And in doing that, Lyra, trying to get out of the car, forgets the alethiometer in the car, and Boreal basically takes it, right? He gives her back her bag, and as soon as Lyra checks the bag for the alethiometer, Boreal is gone. So Lyra, and when she meets back with Will, they plan to find Boreal and try to get the alethiometer back. And that's what happens throughout this episode. And by the end of the episode, we find out Boreal, he's this sort of, he fancies himself a collector, a historian of sorts of this world that he's not a part of. And he is willing to get the alethiometer back to Lyra, but he wants the subtle knife. And he tasks Will and Lyra to get the subtle knife in exchange for the alethiometer. And he can't go to that city with the Tower of Angels because the specters will get him, right? Unless he gets that knife at least. So he tasks the children to go do it, and the episode ends on that sort of cliffhanger, right? So besides the meeting with Marisa and Lee and this kind of deal they make with Lyra and Will, not much happens this episode. It's not one of those episodes that I would rewatch again. Maybe just that scene with the only scene we ever see Marisa and Lee have in the show together. But other than that, I wouldn't really rewatch this episode. Not that it's not a good episode. It's a good episode. I just wouldn't watch it unless I was rewatching the season again, which I'm sure I will before season 3 comes out at least once. Anyway, number 6 on my ranking is episode 2, which is The Cave. Again, it's not a bad episode. It's just, it feels like a little bit of a setup episode. We are introduced to Mary in this episode, and that's what kind of makes it a memorable episode, is because we are introduced to Mary. She's working on dark matter, which is, you know, dust, and she is sort of trying to get this cave, this machine to work so that she can communicate with dust. And in a later episode, she does actually literally communicates and talks with the dust. But in this episode, again, I have it not very high up because it's a little bit too much exposition-y. Like we're setting up who Mary is. We're setting up what dust is, the equivalent of dust in our world. And we kind of see, I think, Boreal as Charles for the first time in this episode. It's the episode that I believe Lyra comes to Will's world for the first time and kind of experiences the Oxford as we would experience Oxford if we went to Oxford. So, but other than that, it's a little bit too much exposition. I really don't have too much to say about this episode. It's great. We get to see Mary and see kind of her motivations, which is just similar to Azrael, right? She's trying to experience more and learn more about dark matter / dust, and what she finds is a lot more than she bargained for. So my number 5 episode is actually the opening episode to the season, The City of Magpies. It was a great opener, but it wasn't, you know, as naturally it goes, as the season progresses, things get more and more and more intense. But a lot of things still happened in this episode. We saw Ruda go and fight the Magisterium soldiers, trying to stop one of the other witches from telling about the prophecy to Marisa. We saw Lyra and Will meet for the first time, which is, I think, the big thing that happens here. Lyra sees Will, and then Will sees Lyra and Pan, right? He sees that Lyra has a demon, which is something very unusual, a talking animal, which that's all it looks like to Will, is just it's a talking animal that can change into different animals. That's cool, and they find this kind of new friendship. They find this friendship with each other, especially for Lyra, who just lost Roger, right? So they also have this common goal. Will sort of learns about this alethiometer that Lyra has, and he also learns that Lyra can help Will find his father, because the alethiometer can basically you can ask the alethiometer any question and it'll give you at least a partial answer from what I can gather. I mean, it's always right. The alethiometer is always right, but it you know, you have to ask it the right questions as well. And Lyra is also learning about Will, how he's a warrior. So it's sort of a setup episode of the adventures of Will and Lyra, right? Which is why, even though I really liked it, I can't put it way up there because, again, it's one of the earlier episodes and it's just setting up the rest of the season. But yeah, that is my episode number 5. So number 4 on my rankings is actually episode 4, which is the Tower of Angels. So I don't know if you guys remember this episode, but what happens is Lee and Jopari, they kind of introduce each other to each other, and Jopari talks about how he needs to find the bearer of the subtle knife and bring that knife and the bearer to Azrael, because they want Azrael to lead this sort of rebellion against the Magisterium, against the authority, against God himself. And the subtle knife is one of the weapons that is kind of like the secret weapon to allow that to happen. So we kind of see this sort of burgeoning friendship between Lee and Jopari, which we will see throughout the rest of the season, which is really great. You know, their banter back and forth is amazing. And I like that very much. I like their chemistry. And of course, Andrew Scott and Lin-Manuel Miranda, both powerhouses in their own right. So to have them to do scenes together is just, it's always a joy to watch. So Another thing that happens in this episode actually is we see Ruda and Serafina and the witches attack the Magisterium ships because they are trying to get through the anomaly to find Lyra. So somehow, I forget how exactly, they realize that Lyra is not in this world. Yeah, because usually they can sort of locate people telepathically if they're in the same universe, but they're not. So they figured that they have to go chase Lyra through the anomaly to find her and protect her, and I think bring her back. Or at least bring them to find Azrael. I forget exactly which one it is. But that happens, the fight scene between the witches and the Magisterium, sort of a revenge fight, right? Because their home got blew up by the Magisterium in episode 1. So that was amazing and cathartic to see. The final thing and the biggest thing that happened this episode is actually, remember earlier I said Will and Lyra, they were tasked to go to get the subtle knife? Well, it turns out Will is actually the chosen bearer of, the new chosen bearer of the subtle knife, and the subtle knife chooses the bearer. The bearer doesn't choose the subtle knife. And they have to go fight Tulio. Tulio had the previous bearer captive so that, because Tulio was getting older, he's like the big brother of Little Bear from Game of Thrones, and he wanted the knife to protect himself from the specters, but he was sort of a little bit too aggressive that he wouldn't give up the knife, and Will needed the knife because they need the lithiometer to find Will's father. And Will fought him for it because Will, you know, he's a trained boxer, amateur boxer, I guess, in high school, and beat up Tulio, got the knife from Tulio, and he got his fingers cut. As soon as he got his fingers cut, I was like, oh, yeah, he's the bearer, right? Because they explicitly told you at the beginning of the episode, right, with the thing, right, with the cast hand with the missing fingers, they're like, this is the bearer's hand or whatever. Yeah, so that happened. I feel bad for Tulio actually, because I think by the end of the episode we see him get attacked by the specters. He just wanted to save himself. But you know, our main characters are also very young, and the implication of their actions sometimes are not fully realized until after it happens, and they also have their own motivation. So I get it. And also the previous bearer was like, you are the chosen one, so I have to give it to you, and then he commits suicide. But because of the action and because multiple things happened this episode, big things, right? Will being the bearer sort of brings him to the level of as the same, at least, level of importance as Lyra, because Lyra, she has her own sort of magical thing, which is the lithiometer, and Will, he has that knife now. So they both sort of have a special ability that only they can do. It brings them sort of above everybody else, and it makes sense why they're the lead characters of the show. But before this, Will was sort of had to keep his own, had to sort of keep pace with Lyra, because Lyra sort of had this magical thing and he was just helping her to help himself. But now I don't even think he needs Lyra anymore, as we'll see from the end of the season, right? They get separated again, and this is sort of the first thing that needs to happen for the rest of Will's story. And this is, I should say, the middle episode of the middle season. So this is literally the halfway point. We're hearing that season 3, it has been greenlit, which is good, and it's probably going to be the final season. So this is the midway point of the whole series, and it was a good one, and I have to put it there at number 4. So we are here at the top 3, and for my top 3, the number 3 episode for me is episode 6, Malice. A lot of things happened during Malice, and we'll save the big one for last. But this is the episode that Lee and Jopari go to the Citagaze. They're looking for Lyra, right? And at the same time looking for the bearer, okay? So that's what happens in this episode, and by the end of the episode, they kind of get shot down by the Magisterium. The Magisterium is also now going through the anomaly because they found out who Lyra really is. She's Eve. They don't say that name in this episode yet, but they find out, and he sends the leader, what's his name, the cardinal, he sends Magisterium soldiers through the anomaly, 3 blimps worth, and 2 of them get destroyed by Jopari's magical powers and Lee's amazing aeronaut skills, because they're trying to kill Lyra. So the threat is real now. They're not just trying to avoid the Magisterium because they're, you know, not on their side. They're trying to avoid the Magisterium because they're going to kill Lyra. The witches, I think, realize this. They're also trying to protect Lyra from everything. The witches have gone through the anomaly, and in this episode, at the beginning of the episode, we see Seraphina save Will and Lyra from the Little Bear and her sort of army of children, because they're mad about what they did to Tulio. Lyra and Will, in the quest of looking for Azrael, we see the angels actually come from the sky. And I didn't put this together until later, right? Those are the same angels, I'm pretty sure, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, that went to meet Azrael at the end of episode 7. So Azrael is on this world somewhere, so they're going to go find Azrael, I'm pretty sure. Mary Malone is in this episode. She goes through the portal, and instead of finding Lyra, she finds the Little Bear and the other girl, and they ask her for a hug. The blonde girl asks her for a hug because they've just been deprived of any sort of love and human connection from adults, that they needed a hug, which was, you know, sad and heartwarming, and Mary gives it to them. And Mary decides, okay, I'm gonna help these girls. I need to bring them to the top of the cliff or the top of the valley where the rest of the children are. And that's where we see Mary go. So she kind of puts off her journey to meet Lyra, to go and help the girls out first. But the big thing that happens here, of course, is Marisa and Boreal are also here at the city gates. And Boreal's like, yo, watch out. The specters will get us if we see them. Marisa seems very calm because, I shouldn't mention that yet because that's my next episode, but Marisa mentioned before that she's not afraid of the specters because she has a way to sort of avoid them. Because it's dust that makes specters hunt adults only, right? It's the difference between adults and children, is adults have sin/dust. Boreal is like, whatever, you know, let's just go through here and find Lyra. But lo and behold, we find specters. Specters are there near the tower, and I want to say Marisa is there. But instead of cowering away like Boreal hides behind a door. He locks the door and closes the door in front of him. He just watches Marisa as she walks towards all the specters. And we see this sort of scene where Marisa was able to sort of sever herself from her connection to her demon, which is not really exactly what she's doing, because we know she can do that. She can kind of separate herself from her demon, but she sort of separates herself from dust. If adults are connected to dust and that's what's attracting these specters, she was able to separate herself from it. And in doing that, the specters do not attack her. And not only that, because I guess it's assumed that she can manipulate dust in this way, she can also take it to the next level, to then utilize this control that she has over dust to control the specters indirectly. And I'm pretty sure it's not explicitly said, but right after this, the specters go hard in looking for Lyra. They even attack witches. I'm not sure if that was in this episode. Yeah, the first attack by specters towards Lyra and her group with Will and the witches was this episode. And as soon as she has control of the specters, of course Boreal is like, oh yeah, we should team up. You are my equal. And right when he said that, I was like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. First and foremost, if you were Boreal, or if I was Boreal, as soon as I saw Marisa, knowing her control specters, I'm gone. You know, good luck, Marisa. I'm going back to the Will's world, and I'm gonna chill as a collector with my money. That's it, right? No more this world domination stuff. Not for me. But no, he's like, yo, we should team up. We should be partners, because he also likes her. And Marisa is like, yeah, go ahead, drink this wine. And he drinks the wine and he gets poisoned and he dies with a tear. Right? I really don't have that much sympathy for Boreal. He's an amazing character. The actor who plays him is great, but he does kill people for fun. Or at least, you know, he kills people who don't deserve to be killed. For example, the journalist who was just doing her job in season 1. So I think his time was coming. If he didn't die this episode, he would have died in the future anyway, right? His poetic justice was gonna come. Marisa is a force not to be reckoned with. She is now as powerful as anybody, right? If Lyra has the alethiometer, if Will has the subtle knife, Marisa has control over specters and her ability to manipulate dust in this way that we haven't seen anybody else do. And it also puts her almost on par with the witches, right? Witches are naturally going to be her enemy, because their objectives are, you know, she's trying to get Lyra, which is trying to protect Lyra, so they will clash, and it sort of puts them levels, right, with each other. Azrael is somewhere else, so we don't really see him, and we don't have to worry about him fighting anyone yet at this point. And that's what happened in Malice. Boreal dies. Big character, was there since the beginning, and yeah, Marisa, of all people, is the one who kills him. Which is why I had to put this as my top 3, specifically my number 3. Now, if you've seen my bottom 5 so far, we have 2 episodes left, and if I say my number 2, you'll know my number 1, but it may differ from yours. And especially my number 2, I realize that there's a lot of bias here on my part, because my number 2 is The Scholar, which is episode 5 in the season 2. And The Scholar is my interpretation of it. The Scholar, you can say it's Mary, but I think for me, The Scholar is Marisa, as Ruth. So this is like the Ruth Wilson episode. She goes to Oxford, okay, and she talks with Mary, and she tries to figure out, why is this Lyra talking to Mary? About what? And she realizes that this is about dust. And she sees Mary, who is this sort of respected professor or associate professor, at Oxford, and she does research on dust, dark matter as they call it, as she calls it. And what triggered Marisa was when Mary asks Marisa, what has she published, right? Marisa she's an expert in this field. I forgot what exactly she called it, some sort of theology. And then she's like, Mary was like, oh, you're talking about religion and dark matter and physics together? How is that even possible? And then Marisa's like, when is that not, right? How can you even separate those two? So do you see the different perspectives? It shows the two different worlds they live in. And Marisa, right after this, she even becomes more distraught and more sort of angry, because the world she's from, women are looked down upon, is extremely misogynistic. She could have been anybody. She could even be running the magisterium right now. That's how she feels, how good she is compared to everyone else. But they keep not giving her what she deserves, the title, or at least the recognition that she deserves, because she's a woman. And she sort of resents this. We see how much she feels the injustices against her by how she treats her demon in that episode. And The Scholar, that's why I think The Scholar is Marisa. Now, in the rest of this episode, this is the first time we see Marisa speak to Lyra for this season. Lyra and Will, they've got the knife, but because Will is now the bearer, Will cannot give or trade away the knife for the alethiometer. So the only way is to utilize that knife in order to sneak in and get the alethiometer and get out really quick. But lo and behold, as soon as Will gets in there, Marisa is there. Marisa is there waiting for Lyra to come back with the knife with Will. So that makes everything very tricky. Will and Marisa utilizes her demon to sort of look for Will and spy on Will while Will thinks he's being sneaky. The monkey comes and attacks him, and Marisa comes out, and that's when Lyra realizes something is going wrong. Lyra brushes past Boreal, and now they're all in his basement room thing, and we get Boreal fighting Will for the knife, and we get Marisa and Lyra having this tense mother-daughter moment similar to the one in season 1. But instead of Marisa attacking Lyra, it's Lyra sort of dominating Marisa. I feel like Marisa here understands, and this is my interpretation of it, I could be wrong, and you guys tell me what you guys think, especially maybe even you guys that read the books, you may know more on this. But to me, it was like Marisa didn't even fight back, right? Marisa, she was sort of allowing Lyra to do this to her, knowing that Lyra will not kill her, right? Because Lyra is a good person at heart and she knows this. Even though Lyra tries to do back what she did to Lyra, we understand that it was uncomfortable for Lyra to do this. She even says it at the end of the episode. And by Marisa not fighting back, she's trying to prove to Lyra, look Lyra, come with me. I am your mother, I love you, and we should be together in this. And but she fails in that sense. She even tries to gain her trust by giving her the alethiometer back, saying fuck Boreal and Boreal's stupid plan. It's like, I'm giving this to Lyra. I need to make sure that Lyra is safe. If she's not gonna come with me, she at least needs to be safe, and she's not safe if she doesn't have the alethiometer. So I think that's also a big reason why she gave the alethiometer back to Lyra. Will and Boreal struggle. Will gets away, cuts a portal really quick. Lyra gets the alethiometer, jumps through the portal with Will, and they close the portal back up. And that's really how the episode ends. Other things that happened this episode, McPhail sends his former rival basically to the gulag because apparently the witches attacking them is a sign the authorities not happy with their lack of devotion, so he kind of sends his former rival into the gulag as a sort of scapegoat. And he also asked Fra Pavel to read the alethiometer again to see where is Mrs. Coulter, and ask him what did they find out when they asked the alethiometer about who Lyra really is. And this will, in the next episode, as I discussed earlier, this will send the Magisterium to go ahead and call out the hit on Lyra. Because if Lyra is Eve, they don't want Eve to fall, so their solution is to kill Lyra. Whereas Marissa's solution is to protect Lyra and not let her fall, not let her get influenced by the serpent. I'm not sure if this is the episode. I think this is the episode, but it could be the previous episode. But I'll just mention it here anyway. Mary is the serpent. So when they say Lyra is Eve and not to be influenced by the serpent, that has to mean Mary. Right? Because if Mary is to play the serpent, as the dust tells her, then actually what Marisa needs to do is keep Lyra away from Mary. So we did not see Mary meet Lyra again, and not in this season, not since Oxford. So that sort of reunion or meetup is going to have to happen in season 3. What else happened? Not much. I think this is the episode that Marisa and Boreal head to the Citagaze, and this leads to the Malice episode, which I just discussed. And I thought this was my top 2 because, again, it was the Ruth Wilson episode of the season. It was the Marisa episode. She had a lot of screen time here, so I'm definitely biased. And also we get to see Lyra and Marisa clash for the first time this season. And I think really the only time, because as we'll learn in the next episode, they don't meet again until the very, very, very end of the finale. So that is my number 2. So my number 1 top episode of the season, as you guys who have seen my reaction to it already know, is the finale, which is, what should I say? How should I say this word? Asa header? I think that's how you say it, Asa header. It's a secret weapon, and I have no idea what it is. I think only the book readers would know what it is. But this secret weapon, magical weapon, is what Azrael needs, as we saw by the flying bats, creatures, monsters. They look like bats, but they are on Azrael's side, and they mentioned that they need this Asa header device, magic thing to help Azrael fight the authority, right? And Ruda is the one that overheard this and told Serafina about this, and Serafina says to Ruda, "Yo, you go look for that and help Azrael. I'm going to protect Lyra. My priority is to protect Lyra." Okay? Lyra, Will is still bleeding. It's a magical wound, as they say. So only magic can treat a magical wound. The only way to treat that wound is to bring Will and Lyra back to Lyra's home universe. But Will says, no, I have to look for my father. My father is on this world, as the lithiometer says. So Lyra is loyal to Will. Serafina is loyal to Lyra. That is what happens. They stay in this universe to help Will find Jopari. Jopari and Lee have just crash landed in the forest. The Magisterium is after them because the Magisterium understands, 1, their threat, their enemies, and 2, they're also most likely looking for Lyra, so they're chasing them down. Jopari needs to find the bear and Lyra. And as he promises Lee, I will do that and protect Lyra, Lee stays behind. He's shot in the leg. So there's no way they can get away at this point. Lee says, I'm gonna make my final stand here, and in what I think was the saddest moment in both seasons, I'd have to say. I mean, I love Roger to death, but Lin-Manuel Miranda, man, like that was more of a shock. Right? This one was just Lin-Manuel Miranda playing Lee very, very well, that it was very emotional. And yeah, you guys, if you saw my reaction, I was tearing up. And that was great. You know, he did everything he could to help Lyra take another step. He was a little bit late. He didn't realize that Serafina was in this world. So he was late in trying to call her. And when Serafina got there, it was just too late. And I don't think the Magisterium were there anymore either, because we didn't see Serafina fight them back. And then what happens is, and all of this time, Marisa is sending specters to fight witches who are protecting Lyra, and she's on the way to get Lyra. Mary has just left the girls back to the rest of the children at the top of the valley or the hill, but now she's now looking at her I Ching device, her alethiometer of sorts, trying to figure out her next step. She's also trying to look for Lyra, if I'm not mistaken. So this leads to Will cutting off from the rest of the group to look for Jopari. He doesn't know it's Jopari. He just is looking for his father, and he does. He finds his father, who is Jopari. Jopari realizes the bearer is Will. They have this conversation for the first time. It's the first time really Will has even met his father. I don't think he remembers him, barely. I don't even think he can talk yet, you know, back then, because he was so young. And they have this the first real conversation, father-son conversation they have. And the first thing, what touched me a lot in this episode, in this part at least, was Jopari asks about his wife, right? He asks Will how is his mother. That was the first thing he asked, which was like heartbreaking. And then Jopari says, I can't believe you're the bearer, so that means you have a very, 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 very big task in this war, in this great battle that's going to happen. So he promises that after all of this, they will go back home and live a normal, a normal family life again. But as soon as he promises that, promise gets broken because one of the Magisterium soldiers tries to shoot at Will, and of course, as a father would, Jopari takes the bullet and gets hit in the back, probably through the heart or through the chest. He didn't die right away, but it was a fatal wound. And his demon kills the Magisterium soldier's demon, so the threat is no longer there for Will, but at the same time he's bleeding out, and then he dies, and Will is devastated. He just met his father again after all these years. He's did all of this to meet his father, find him, and as soon as he finds him, he is taken away from him. And while all of this is happening, the witch is protecting Lyra, Seraphina is gone, and the other witch is sleeping on the job, and she gets eaten by a specter, which means that Marisa is close by. And Marisa finds Lyra sleeping and puts her in her trunk and gets on a boat. So that's where it ends for our main cast of characters. And then we see the cameo with, of course, we see the cameo with Roger in the after credits scene, which I'm so glad to see Roger back. I think some of you guys in the spoilers, the comments might have spoiled it a little bit for me, saying, and it's not really a spoiler, he's dead, right? But just because we'll see him doesn't mean he's gonna be back alive, but I'm just glad we'll see him again. At least we know that Lyra is gonna somehow communicate through the dust to Roger. And then we see Azrael. The great James McAvoy, doing his monologue at the end of the season, talking to the angels because he needs their help to fight the authority. Pretty sure he was talking to the angels there. So he's got the angels on his side, he's got the witches on his side, he's got the beasts on his side, he's got the bears on his side, he's got Lyra on his side, I think. Lyra was looking for Azrael because Azrael killed Roger and she wants answers, and basically he's been her uncle, right, this whole time, but he's basically been her guardian, even though he wasn't there a lot for her whole life. So of course she's gonna want to find him, whether to confront him or just to be on his side. That doesn't really matter, right? But she's been taken away by Marisa, so we'll see what happens there. So Will has to go find Azrael now with the witches. I wonder what's gonna happen there. Will the witches help Will find Azrael, or will the witches go and try to get Lyra back? That will be very interesting. Definitely the best episode of the season. I'm sure it's the best episode for you guys as well. Usually the finales are. Not always are the finales the best episodes of seasons and shows, but usually when done right, they are. Finales can be disappointing and still be very good, but not in this case. Not disappointed at all. And the only reason I'm sad is because it ended very, very quickly, it seems. And we'll have to wait another year, at least more than a year, to get our season 3, which will then be our final season, it seems, of His Dark Materials on HBO. So go ahead and hit the like button to help the channel, and subscribe if you want to see more rankings and reactions and streams. That would also be greatly appreciated. I kind of did my season wrap up already talking about the finale episode, but just to kind of put things in perspective, it's great to see the connection of in this season between Will and Lyra. They were not together in the whole of season 1. Will was only in the second half of season 1. And this whole season, we got Will. Basically, it was the adventures of Will and Lyra. All the other moving parts were happening, okay? Definitely Azrael was happening. It was just happening somewhere else. Marisa, she was sort of learning her special ability, right? But she didn't get too much screen time this season. She was there, but she wasn't, I wouldn't consider her sort of a main player this season. She was there as a recurring character. And she did basically show up every episode, but I would say this was more of a Will and Lyra sort of show. And We got to see a lot more of Lee. He was kind of a recurring as well. He showed up every other episode, and then Jopari only showed up really for like very few episodes if you think about it, but made a big impact because he was with Lee. They were sort of the B storyline here, I think, more so than the Boreal and Marisa one. But it's great. It's great overall. And then we get to see that friendship culminate into trust between Will and Lyra, and then they're ripped apart right at the end. Will is now going to go on his own journey since leaving his home, because he basically went to the Citagaze and met Lyra right away. So he hadn't been alone this whole time. Lyra is going to be with Marisa, so that will be interesting. How will their time together, and I'm sure it's gonna, be at least for one episode, maybe two, or even maybe more, they're going to be together. And how will they affect each other? Will one of them change, right? Will Marisa, who has always been seen as this sort of antagonist, now she's trying to protect Lyra, but how far is she willing to go to protect Lyra? Is she willing to help Lyra realize her prophecy, or will she continue being an antagonist and Lyra is just gonna have to escape from her? So all of these questions are posed on us on the finale, and it was great to watch. I really liked the season, and I guess moving on to recommendation and review, I don't, like I said previously, I don't give number ratings, or I don't give grades or whatever. I recommend this to everyone who's really in love with fantasy, especially one where there's this whole sort of universe to play with, right? The His Dark Materials sort of universe, which has been well established through the novels, is realized in this massively expensive show, and with great actors in it. So I think everybody who's into sort of fantasy and even philosophical discussions on, religion versus science is touched upon here. They're not, it doesn't go super deep into it, maybe not as much as the books do, but the parallels between our world and this His Dark Materials world, they're pretty explicit for us to sort of make up our own minds. And it really does have a point of view, right? There's no narrator to this show, but it does pose the sort of religious extremists as the antagonists, as rightfully so, and it clearly makes those parallels to sort of our real world much more glaring, and this show really does have something to say on that front. But it's not over yet, so I'm interested. What's really interesting to me is, or what I'm very interested in seeing in season 3, is how will justice be served to our antagonists? I'm sure that the protagonists, Lyra and Will, they will, succeed in their prophecy, but in them succeeding, what will happen to the Magisterium and to Marisa, right? Will they be defeated and killed, or will they realize this new truth and adapt to it, right? I think that is the crux of the show, right? How will they fare in a world where the ideologies of the world is shifting from sort of this religious-based world to a more so research, scientific-based world, right? So I think that's sort of the main theme of the show. And if I'm wrong, you let me know I'm wrong, and you tell me what you think, and also tell me how you ranked the episodes in the season. And if you do want to give it a ranking or a rating, you let me know in the comments, and whether you agree with me or not. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I look forward to season 3. I look forward to seeing you guys during season 3. And in the meantime, go ahead and check out my other reactions and my other videos. Go ahead and hit subscribe. But you know what it is. I'm sure you've seen my season 2 episode reactions as well. So until the next video, remember, Eazy does it.